They say some souls meet not to stay, but to awaken each other, to pull from the shadows the parts that long to be seen, to ignite a transformation disguised as heartbreak. When a super empath meets an avoidant, it is not a love story written in comfort. It is one written in mirrors, in lessons, and in the silent spaces where growth takes root. There is a magnetic force that exists between the super empath and the avoidant, a pull that feels both divine and destructive. It is not coincidence but polarity, two emotional energies drawn together by an invisible current. The empath embodies openness, connection, and healing, while the avoidant embodies distance, control, and emotional restraint. When these two meet, their energies lock into orbit, each sensing in the other something they are missing within themselves. The empath feels the calm of the avoidant's self-containment, while the avoidant feels the warmth of the empath's love that touches a part of them long forgotten. But the same magnetism that draws them together also pushes them apart, creating a cycle of intensity and withdrawal. Even after distance, that unseen current doesn't fade. It lingers, pulling them back into the same gravitational field of longing and reflection. At the heart of this attraction lies something deeper than chemistry. It's the bond of inner wounds. The empath, often shaped by early emotional pain, carries an unconscious belief that love must be earned through giving and understanding. The avoidant, shaped by neglect or emotional dismissal, learn to survive by retreating inward. When these two meet, their wounds recognize each other before their minds do. The empath senses the avoidant's unspoken pain and feels a spiritual duty to heal it, while the avoidant feels drawn to the empath's emotional safety, yet fears being consumed by it. When the avoidant pulls away, the empath's wound of abandonment flares to life, compelling them to reach back out, not just to save the relationship, but to soothe the inner child that still aches for acceptance. Both are acting out unhealed stories, each mistaking emotional familiarity for love. For the super empath, love is not merely an emotion, it is a mission. They believe that with enough patience and compassion, they can reach the avoidant's hidden heart and melt their fear. But this belief often becomes an illusion, one that convinces them that love can fix what only self-awareness can heal. They mistake their endurance for strength, not realizing that their attempt to save the avoidant is also an unconscious attempt to prove they are enough. Each time the avoidant retreats, the empath's resolve deepens, convinced that if they love a little harder, if they show a little more understanding, the walls will finally come down. Yet what they are really confronting is not the avoidant's fear, but their own, the fear that love must always be earned through sacrifice. Yet beneath the longing, a deeper truth unfolds. This connection is not punishment, it is awakening. The empath learns through the avoidant the importance of boundaries, self-love, and emotional independence. They realize that true compassion does not mean overextending themselves, and that love without self-awareness becomes self-erasure. The avoidant, through the empath's mirror, begins to see the loneliness behind their detachment and the yearning behind their control. Every separation becomes a lesson, every return a reflection. Together, they evolve through their contrasts, teaching each other the balance between closeness and freedom, between giving and receiving, between love and fear. In relationships like these, the attraction is more than emotional, it's archetypal. The empath's warmth represents light, openness, and emotional safety, while the avoidant's distance embodies mystery, control, and self-containment. These polarities mirror universal forces, expansion and contraction, love and fear, union and separation. Each is magnetized toward the other because together they form a whole. For the empath, the avoidant's calm detachment feels like a grounding force amid their emotional depth, while for the avoidant, the empath's intensity feels like a breath of life that momentarily dissolves their inner numbness. Yet the very qualities that draw them together also create the tension that tears them apart. When the avoidant eventually pulls away, it's often a reaction to the overwhelming closeness that triggers their deep-seated fear of engulfment. They retreat into solitude to preserve their sense of control and emotional safety. For the empath, this sudden withdrawal feels like emotional whiplash. The same energy that once felt magnetic now becomes painful absence, and the empath's natural instinct is to restore the connection. The polarity that once pulled them together now reverses its charge, creating an obsessive longing, a need to understand, and an ache to bring harmony back to the imbalance. This magnetic field between the two doesn't dissipate with distance. Even in separation, the bond lingers in the emotional subconscious, as if both remain tethered through an invisible thread. The empath, attuned to emotional energy, feels this thread more acutely, sensing the avoidant's unspoken emotions and unfinished cycles. The avoidant, though consciously detached, still feels the echo of the connection in moments of solitude, even if they can't name it. This polarity creates a push-pull pattern that neither can easily escape because it feeds on emotional contrast. The more the empath reaches out, the more the avoidant withdraws, and yet both feel a strange completeness in the dance itself. At its core, this magnetic pull is the psyche's way of seeking integration. Both the empath and the avoidant carry within them parts of the other. The empath suppresses their own need for space and self-protection, while the avoidant suppresses their need for intimacy and vulnerability. Their attraction is therefore not just romantic but symbolic. Each unconsciously senses in the other what they have disowned in themselves. The empath sees the avoidant's boundaries and desires to soften them with love, while the avoidant sees the empath's emotional openness and secretly yearns for that same freedom. Their reattraction, even after separation, is the unconscious drive towards psychological balance. In this polarity, no one is truly the pursuer or the runner. They are two forces of the same energy orbiting each other, drawn back again and again by what remains unresolved within. The empath's light seeks the avoidant's shadow, and the avoidant's silence calls to the empath's heart. The magnetic pull is not punishment. It is the psyche's way of mirroring the unfinished work of emotional integration. The connection between a super-empath and an avoidant is not random. It is rooted in the unconscious patterns shaped long before either of them met. At the heart of this attraction lies the inner wound connection, a powerful psychological bond formed through unhealed emotional experiences from the past. The super-empath, known for their deep sensitivity and desire to understand others, often carries unresolved pain from early life where love felt conditional, inconsistent, or earned through caretaking. They learn to find safety and identity by tending to the emotions of others, believing that if they could heal those they love, they would finally feel secure and valued. When they encounter the avoidant, this wound is immediately reactivated, though neither realizes it at first. The avoidant, on the other hand, often comes from a background where emotional needs were dismissed, ignored, or met with rejection. To cope, they built internal walls to protect themselves from vulnerability. They equated closeness with danger and independence with safety. When the super-empath enters their life, offering emotional depth and compassion, it stirs something the avoidant has long suppressed, the desire to be seen and accepted. Yet that same emotional intensity also threatens the fragile control they maintain over their inner world. This paradox creates an invisible tension that fuels the relationship. The empath senses the avoidant's hidden pain and feels an almost spiritual calling to heal it, while the avoidant unconsciously recognizes in the empath the warmth they once longed for but learned to fear. When the avoidant pulls away, it's not just rejection that the empath feels. It's the reopening of an old wound of abandonment. The empath's nervous system reacts as if history is repeating itself. The loss of connection becomes symbolic of past experiences where love was withdrawn the moment they needed it most. Their subconscious mind cannot distinguish the present from the past, so they are compelled to reach back out, to restore what feels like not just a relationship, but their own emotional safety. This is why the empath finds it nearly impossible to detach even when logic tells them to walk away. The emotional body believes that healing the avoidant is equivalent to healing the self. For the avoidant, the empath's persistence mirrors something equally unresolved within them. Though they crave autonomy, the avoidant often feels an internal void that surfaces only when they are deeply seen by another. The empath's love becomes both a comfort and a confrontation. It exposes the loneliness they've buried under years of emotional detachment. Yet, the more the empath tries to bridge the distance, the more the avoidant feels suffocated by intimacy. This cycle repeats because both are responding not to each other's present behavior, but to their inner child's unmet needs. The empath becomes the caregiver they once needed, while the avoidant reenacts the emotional withdrawal they used to survive. This dynamic creates a loop of attraction and pain, a pattern where both individuals are unconsciously trying to rewrite their emotional histories through each other. The empath, drawn to the familiar feeling of earning love, sees the avoidant's retreat as a challenge to prove their worth through unconditional giving. They believe that if they can love deeply enough, they can finally transform rejection into acceptance. The avoidant, meanwhile, is drawn back to the empath because they offer the emotional safety they've always desired but never trusted. Every time they reconnect, the bond feels magnetic, as though destiny is pulling them back together. But beneath the surface, it's the pull of unhealed wounds seeking resolution. This is why super empaths so often reattract to avoidance even after being hurt. It isn't weakness or dependency. It's the psyche's attempt to resolve the emotional story that has never truly ended. Both the empath and the avoidant are mirrors of each other's inner pain. The empath's longing to heal the avoidant is an external reflection of their own longing to heal themselves. The avoidant's withdrawal forces the empath to confront the part of them that believes love must be chaste, while the empath's devotion challenges the avoidant to face the vulnerability they've spent a lifetime suppressing. Together, they play out the unfinished narrative of their pasts, not to destroy each other, but to awaken to the truth that the healing they seek in one another must ultimately begin within. Super empaths often carry within them a deep, almost sacred belief that love has the power to heal all wounds. This belief, though rooted in compassion, becomes a trap when paired with someone who struggles with emotional avoidance. When an avoidant partner begins to pull away, the super empath's instinct is not to detach, but to give more, to love harder, to prove their worth, to show that love can conquer the distance. They mistake the avoidant's silence for a test of devotion and believe that if they can love unconditionally enough, they can dissolve the other person's fear. This illusion of fixing love is one of the most powerful forces that keep super empaths returning to avoidance, even after they have been emotionally drained. It's not just emotional loyalty, it's a psychological compulsion born from the need to turn pain into purpose. In their heart, the super empath does not see themselves as rescuing the avoidant, but as fulfilling a higher emotional truth, that love must endure even when it's not reciprocated. This mindset stems from the empath's earliest emotional experiences, where love may have been inconsistent or tied to performance. They learn to equate worthiness with self-sacrifice, mistaking emotional labor for intimacy. When the avoidant begins to detach, this old belief resurfaces, whispering that if they can just hold on longer, if they can be more patient, softer, and more forgiving, then the other person will finally recognize their love and stay. This dynamic transforms the relationship into an emotional proving ground, where the empath's value feels tied to their ability to heal what is broken in the avoidant. The avoidant, however, does not interpret this devotion in the way the empath imagines. To them, the empath's intensity can feel overwhelming, a threat to the fragile independence they've built around their emotional walls. As the empath tries to close the distance, the avoidant retreats further, not because they do not feel, but because feeling itself becomes too vulnerable. This withdrawal, in turn, reinforces the empath's illusion that the avoidant's love is locked behind pain, and only their persistence can set it free. Every moment of brief connection, every small emotional opening, acts like a reward that keeps the empath hooked, fueling the belief that love is beginning to work. Yet what's actually happening is a repetition of trauma bonding, an emotional loop where pain and hope coexist in equal measure. The empath's desire to fix becomes both a form of love and self-defense. By focusing on healing the avoidant, the empath avoids confronting their own wound of unworthiness. They convince themselves that the avoidant's transformation will validate their inner need to be enough. When the avoidant finally shows glimpses of vulnerability, the empath experiences a rush of emotional fulfillment, as though all their effort has finally paid off. But as soon as the avoidant retreats again, the empath falls back into the pattern of chasing connection through self-sacrifice. It's a painful cycle that masquerades as love, but is actually a subconscious attempt to rewrite the past, to finally earn the love that was once withheld from them. The illusion of fixing love is powerful because it allows the empath to maintain hope even in the face of rejection. They see their patience and empathy as noble qualities, and they are, but when misplaced, those same qualities become chains. The empath believes that loving someone through their fear will eventually teach them to stay, but this belief overlooks a crucial truth. The avoidance healing cannot come through another's love, only through their own willingness to confront what they fear within themselves. The empath's love, no matter how pure, cannot undo the avoidant's learned detachment. Still, the empath continues to return, not because they are naive, but because their heart has been conditioned to equate endurance with value. Every time the avoidant pulls away, the empath's illusion is reignited. They believe that this time will be different, that this time their love will be enough to reach the parts of the avoidant that no one else could. In reality, the empath is fighting their own reflection, the part of themselves that still believes love must be earned through pain. The cycle persists until the empath finally sees that their desire to fix others is an echo of their own need to feel whole. Only when they stop trying to heal love and start healing themselves does the illusion begin to fade, revealing that true love was never about fixing someone else, but about freeing both souls from the need to. The connection between a super empath and an avoidant often continues long after physical separation because their bond operates on an energetic level that logic alone cannot sever. Both individuals become intertwined through a deep emotional resonance that surpasses surface attraction. This resonance is created during moments of vulnerability, shared emotions, and the silent intensity that passes between them. Even when the avoidant pulls away, that energy lingers, echoing like a vibration within both of their subconscious minds. It's as if their emotional frequencies have synchronized, creating an invisible thread that keeps them tethered to one another. For the super empath, who naturally operates on a heightened emotional wavelength, this energetic bond feels impossible to ignore. They sense the avoidant's distance not only as loss, but as a psychic absence that still hums with unspoken feelings. The empath often experiences this connection as a haunting pull, where memories and emotions replay in cycles. They may feel the avoidant's presence in dreams, moments of stillness, or unexpected waves of emotion that don't seem to belong to them. This is because emotional energy doesn't vanish when someone leaves. It imprints itself in the subconscious through attachment, longing, and unresolved communication. For the avoidant, though they might appear detached, the resonance exists too, buried beneath the armor they've built to protect themselves. Their withdrawal doesn't mean they've forgotten. It means they are trying to silence something that feels too intense to face. The very thing they run from is the same energy that quietly binds them back to the empath. When the avoidant retreats, the empath's instinct is to restore the lost balance, not out of desperation, but because they can feel the dissonance in the connection. The empath's energy seeks harmony, while the avoidant's energy seeks control. These opposing needs create a magnetic cycle that draws them back together repeatedly. The empath reaches outward to reconnect, while the avoidant's silence acts as a gravitational pull inward, deepening the tension. Even as they move apart, the shared emotional imprint keeps resurfacing through thoughts, synchronicities, and emotions that seem unexplainable. Both individuals carry each other's emotional fingerprints, which is why neither can completely let go until the lesson within the connection has been integrated. This energetic cycle often mirrors the subconscious needs of both partners. The empath's resonance with the avoidant is not accidental. It reflects their inner pattern of seeking healing through emotional connection. They feel drawn to the avoidant not just because of love, but because the energy between them resonates with something familiar, a reflection of a childhood longing to be seen and accepted by someone emotionally unavailable. The avoidant, in turn, is drawn to the empath's warmth because it touches the part of them that still longs for emotional safety, even though they fear it. When they come together, it feels like balance. When they part, it feels like something vital is missing. This emotional pendulum sustains the energetic loop, making separation feel unnatural to both. Even in silence, both continue to exchange energy. The empath might sense the avoidant thinking of them, while the avoidant might feel waves of nostalgia they can't quite explain. Their connection exists beyond words, feeding off unspoken emotion and unfinished emotional business. The avoidant may find themselves reminded of the empath through sensory triggers, a scent, a song, a phrase, each awakening the dormant bond they thought they escaped. The empath, more attuned to emotional undercurrents, feels the same connection as a weight in their heart, a knowing that something between them remains unresolved. This resonance is not simply romantic, it's deeply psychological and spiritual. It forces both individuals to confront their inner dynamics. The empath's energy acts as a mirror, reflecting the avoidant's hidden longing for intimacy, while the avoidant's detachment reflects the empath's need to find emotional self-sufficiency. Through their energetic bond, each unconsciously pushes the other towards self-realization. The avoidant's distance teaches the empath to stop chasing love that must be earned, and the empath's presence teaches the avoidant to face what they have been running from, the fear of true connection. Their repeated returns to each other are not signs of failure, but part of an energetic cycle of transformation. Even when both try to move on, the resonance persists until the lessons embedded in their bond have been absorbed. The connection is a mirror, a teacher, and a reflection of the unfinished work within their own hearts. For the empath, learning to stop seeking the avoidant's energy and to instead center their own breaks the cycle. For the avoidant, learning to confront their emotions without retreat completes the healing. Until both evolve beyond the emotional resonance that keeps them bound, their energies continue to find their way back, not out of fate, but out of the deep, subconscious need to find balance within themselves. The journey between a super empath and an avoidant often unfolds like a mirror reflecting the deepest truths of the soul. Each encounter, each separation, and each reattraction carries within it a hidden purpose, an awakening through reflection. When the empath reattracts to the avoidant after distance or withdrawal, it is not simply about attachment or longing. It is the psyche's way of leading both individuals toward higher awareness. The relationship becomes a living mirror, showing each person the unhealed aspects of themselves through the emotional reactions the other evokes. The empath sees in the avoidant the embodiment of everything they fear yet secretly feel within: emotional distance, detachment, and self-protection. The avoidant sees in the empath everything they have suppressed: vulnerability, openness, and emotional depth. Their connection becomes a meeting point between shadow and light, between what each denies and what each desires. For the super empath, the avoidant's withdrawal awakens a profound sense of self-examination. When the avoidant disappears or emotionally disconnects, the empath is left in silence, an empty space that forces them to look inward. That silence becomes a teacher, revealing how much of their identity has been built around giving, fixing, and proving their worth through love. The pain of separation exposes the empath's hidden wounds, showing how their compassion has often been tied to self-sacrifice. In this reflection, the empath begins to recognize that their tendency to overextend themselves is not unconditional love, but an unconscious attempt to heal their own history of emotional neglect. Through the avoidant, they see the truth of their own imbalance, how loving without boundaries leads to depletion rather than connection. The avoidant, in turn, faces their own awakening through the empath's mirror. The empath's persistent love, patience, and emotional depth challenge the avoidant's long-held belief that vulnerability is dangerous. Even when the avoidant retreats, the memory of the empath lingers like a light they cannot completely extinguish. The empath's energy reveals to them the cost of their emotional armor. It stirs an inner conflict between the safety of isolation and the longing for intimacy. Over time, this reflection begins to erode the avoidant's rigid self-protection, forcing them to confront the emptiness beneath their detachment. The empath's love becomes the mirror through which the avoidant sees the loneliness they have denied for years. Each cycle of separation and reattraction deepens this mutual awakening. The empath learns that love without self-awareness becomes self-erasure, while the avoidant learns that distance without honesty becomes self-imprisonment. Every time they come back together, the emotional charge between them feels both familiar and transformative. It's not merely the repetition of pain, but the slow unveiling of truth. The empath starts to see that what they long to fix in the avoidant is what they have long neglected within themselves: the need for self-acceptance and emotional grounding. The avoidant, too, begins to sense that the peace they chase in solitude cannot exist without confronting the emotions they've run from. Their repeated encounters become a psychological alchemy, each meeting burning away a layer of illusion until both begin to see themselves clearly. The awakening that occurs through this dynamic is not immediate. It unfolds gradually through pain, reflection, and surrender. The empath's heart learns to turn its compassion inward, understanding that self-love is not selfish but necessary for true connection. They begin to establish boundaries not out of coldness, but from wisdom. The avoidant, witnessing this transformation, starts to question their own avoidance of intimacy. They may still pull away, but something inside them begins to shift, a growing awareness that love is not the threat they believed it to be. The empath's evolution indirectly awakens the avoidant to their own capacity for emotional presence. Through reflection, Both realized that their bond was never just about romance, it was about evolution. The avoidant served as the catalyst for the empath's self-realization, and the empath became the emotional mirror that awakened the avoidant to their humanity. What once felt like a painful cycle of rejection and longing transforms into a journey toward wholeness. The empath no longer seeks to change the avoidant, but learns to honor the connection as a teacher, not a destination. In turn, the avoidant's silence begins to lose its power over them. The mirror has done its work. The empath has found themselves within the very space where they once felt lost, and the avoidant begins to awaken to the possibility of love that does not threaten their freedom, but reveals their soul. The super-empath does not truly lose the avoidant. They transcend the need to be completed by them. The avoidant does not escape love. They are quietly transformed by it. And when the cycle finally ends, what remains is not the ache of longing, but the quiet understanding that both were catalysts for each other's awakening. Love, in its highest form, was never about fixing the other. It was about remembering who they were before the wounds began, and who they were always meant to become.